We've had a week since the Tour of Flanders. 28 sections of cobbles, 198 riders riding this 258 kilometers from Compiègne, the north of Paris, to Roubaix, the industrial region of France. This is it live. We are now with 20 kilometers to go. The three biggest names in single-day classics here out in the front. This section of Pavé, the section of Camchine et Pervel. There is Tom Bonen from Quick-Step, Fabian Cancellara from CSC, and Alessandro Ballan here on this section of cobbles. Let's just unfold what happened before this. Three guys went away early on. Well, to say early on, it was 90 kilometers into the race. A huge tailwind this morning at the start of Compiègne, and it kept the pace really high. They didn't want to let anybody get away like Dirk de Mol did, if you remember, years and years ago, and steal a victory with a tailwind. It was Matti Pronk from Koolstrop, Jan Koeks from Landbouw-Kredig, and Alex Serov from Tinkoff. They went away, but they were tracked down when CSC came to the front and really began to shut things down. CSC had two men up towards the front with some sort of chance of taking an overall victory. Fabian Cancellara and Stuart O'Grady. Lundqvist and Matti Bretschel doing an awful lot of work on the front for them. There's been a number of huge crashes. Yuri Christoph hitting the cobblestones on the section 19 to the finish. Arnold Coyo, Pozzato and Fletcher both going down on cobbles. Their race is effectively over. Pozzato chased for such a long time to get back on and made it on with about 75 to go. Fletcher the same, but it was just taking it all out of their legs. And then a big break being pushed on by Stijn de Volder, last week's winner of the Tour of Flanders, taking 8 men with him. CSC pushing on and pushing on. And those 8 men also attacked by Johan van Summeren. At that point, we had 2 Lotto riders, 2 Quick-Step riders, and 2 CSC riders, along with the remnants you can see here. We'll go through them in a minute. Van Summeren pushed on hard for Leif Hoste, who again had bad luck. You can see him just in your camera here. Hoste and Martin Maskrand is the rider from Slipstream Chipotle just behind. Stijn de Volder in the Belgian champions colours and Stuart O'Grady in this little group here. They are the second group on the road. Obviously, de Volder not needing to do anything, neither has Stuart O'Grady, but they have done. Hoste and Maskrant back together. It looks like they're sorted out now for see who's going to go for 3rd spot, or 4th even. But at about 45 to go, de Volder shot off the front of the group of 8, which included Van Summeren, de Volder, Bonen, O'Grady, Ballan, Hoste, Cancellara and Maskrant. They'd really whittled the field down. O'Grady decided to go after him, having he'd got about 40 seconds gap, and that was too much. And he went over to Stijn de Volder like a rocket. Then Hoste had to bridge the gap. Remember, he'd had to chase on once because of a puncture already. He did make the gap, but he drew riders with him. Cancellara, Bonen and Alessandro Ballan. They all got back together, but Van Summeren was the man who dropped off the back. He'd done so much work for Hoste that Hoste was stuck by himself, and it's really not been Silence Lotto's day today, because with about 30 to go, Tom Bonen attacked, and immediately onto the wheel went Fabian Cancellara, and that man there at the back, Alessandro Ballan, who'd been lurking in the group of 7, as it whittled down to without Van Summeren, just been lurking and lurking. Didn't have a teammate with him, riding very tactically, very astute. It's been a fabulous race so far. We have under 20 kilometers to go. This is the section of Pavé at L'Arbre. So famous. The Belgian flags are out. They really want Tom Bonen to do something, and he's been looking super strong. Fabian Cancellara turns on the tap and at the front. Now, it looked like Ballan has been suffering to me over the last few sections, but Cancellara, look at this. Just showing his power, and suddenly Tom Bonen looks under pressure. Bonen for the first time, he's been looking comfortable all the way through so far. I tell you who else was looking very comfortable until he had an accident. About 40k out was Baden Cook. Sebastian Langeveld also crashed as well. There's been a number of really nasty crashes, just sliding out on the corner. But it's come down to these 3 now. The final attack we've seen had been launched by Tom Bonen, who's just fought his way back onto the wheel of Fabian Cancellara. I think just testing the legs, Cancellara. Alessandro Ballan lurked to the back. and waited until he had the opportunity to see the big guns go. He knew that Bonen's in good form. Bonen was very, very good at Flanders. Now he puts on a bit of pressure. Has Cancellara got it in the legs? Cancellara, who didn't manage to pull off a win last week when he so wanted to. Look at the crowds here, and this is where we saw Leif Hoster a while back, 2 or 3 years back, get one of those Flemish flags wrapped up in his rear wheel. Fantastic bike control to keep it under control. The weather's been kind to these guys today. There was the chance of some rain, but it's just turned into a very, very dusty grind here, and the pace has been relentless. They've really, really hammered away at those people who has showed any sign of weakness. Big loser George Hincapie. He was right up the front here until he punctured, and he has not been able to get on, because at that particular point, De Volder went, and then O'Grady went, and everybody else went. When the 8 went away with De Volder and Van Summeren and Bonen and et al., Hincapie was still off the back, chasing back on with a spare wheel from the neutral bike. One of the big problems in this race is the cars were drawn by lottery. The order in which they were on the road was drawn by lottery, because this is outside of the UCI. The ASO have decided to do it their own way, and that caused all sorts of havoc with the following team cars. And in a race like this, it's not even 10, 15 seconds by the car coming up to the rider. It's a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. It can be really, really difficult. You just have to pray you don't get a technical, and these guys will be really praying now. Alessandro Ballan, who's ridden a very, very canny race. He's not the strongest of these three, and if they get to the Roubaix Velodrome together, he is going to struggle. He would dearly love to win Paris Roubaix, but he's got Fabian Cancellara and Tom Bonen with him. He's a strong rider, but he's not as strong as those two. 4 sections of cobbles to go now. That's the end of the fourth, at L'Arbre. The next one coming on very shortly with just 15 to go. Pavé at Grusson. 1:37 is the gap back to the pursuing riders. O'Grady was selfless today for Fabian Cancellara. He attacked really hard, as did Stan de Volder. Well, let's just have a look at what was going on a little earlier in the race, as the pursuers are 1:40 behind. Oh, this is one of the big crashes which had Arnold Coyo down. There he is on the floor, and there is Pippo Pozzato. Pozzato down on the deck. Bike affected as well. He had to change a very slick changeover at one of the very slow corners with a feed stop just after it, so they did a fantastic job. Here's Juan Antonio Fletcher. He's been caught up with mechanical, and chasing back on, he had Just Postuma coming back to help him out. It took 30k for those two to chase back on, you know. And Bonen just turned to Fletcher when he got there and said in Spanish, "Where have you been?" basically. De Volder now at the back. Winner on the Flanders cobbles last week, but nothing like this. This is a right hammering for everybody. Now Ballan at the front. What will be going through his mind? He's had nobody with him all day. He's ridden a very, very canny race. The big losers so far are Silence Lotto. Leif Hoster just worn out, as was Johan van Summeren. Oh, Bonen's just, look at that! Look at the power in his legs, and Ballan is struggling to hang on there. Well, Mr. Director, come on, we want to see the battle at the front. We know these guys are 1.5 minutes down. Bonen has just suddenly upped the ante at the front, and he's really pushing the legs of Fabian Cancellara now. Has Ballan got back on and back to the front? Looks like he has. Oh, no, he hasn't. There we are. Well, Ballan looked as though he was suffering a few kilometers ago. He's ridden a canny race as best as he possibly can, but unfortunately, I think if these two start battling, his best hope is that they will miss him going on a long one, but I'm not sure that he could possibly outdo these two, and certainly won't outdo Tom Bonen in a flat-out sprint if they get to the velodrome. Really suffering now. Bonen, who's looked super strong all day, and he's looked very relaxed. Cancellara actually has looked a little more under pressure. And O'Grady did great work for him earlier on today. Well, the 106th running of this Paris-Roubaix, the queen of the classics, with just over 12.5 kilometers to go. 1 minute 52 seconds down. Oh, there goes Fabian. And Bonen having to dig in really hard. Ballan luckily got the wheel of him then. He can take the toe. Once again, Fabian Cancellara putting that time trialing ability to good use. He's really testing his two breakaway companions now. Remember, there's still another 2 sections of Pavé to come at Dehen, and that little 300-meter section just before the velodrome, which, to be honest, is just almost ceremonial rather than anything else. It's all over by the shouting as far as cobbles go. Ballan, a former winner, last year's winner of the Tour of Flanders. The other 2 men, both winners of Paris Roubaix, and of course that man sandwiched in the middle is Tom Boden, one of only 7 men to have won Flanders and Roubaix in the same year. Interestingly, the man at the front there, you can see now, is just coming back, Fabian Cancellara. Of course, he won Milan-San Remo with a beautifully timed solo attack off the front of the bunch. If he were to win today, he'd be the first man since Sean Kelly back in 1985 to win Milan-San Remo and Roubaix in the same year. And if you want to find another rider who's done that, you've got to go all the way back to 1908. It's a very rare occurrence. Well, Sean will be riveted by this. It'll be quite nice for him to be on the other side of the screen for a change. Bowman at the back. They've all had their last bidons of water. As usual, the bidons of water playing havoc amongst riders, especially in the Arenberg. Luckily, nobody going down really hard on a bidon this year. But it's come down to a wonderful finale here. It's been a fantastic race. It really has. With the early breakaway, Matti Pronk driving it along with Jan Koeks and Alexander Serov, the Tinkoff rider, and Landau respectively. It was a very strong tailwind, so it's been run very, very fast indeed, which is why we're under 20 when you've joined us. Dirk de Mol, you may remember, many years ago, took advantage of a tailwind to win from a long way out. Some big names have crashed and had real problems. Pipo Pozzato really wanted to win here. No chance at all, because he took 30 kilometers to regain the group once he had got up from his particular spill and got back on a bike. He had to have a bike change as well. Backstead well out of it today. Magnus was up towards the front with about 100 kilometers to go, but he's just dropped off. Not seen a thing of him. But I tell you what, his teammate Martin Maskant, the young Dutchman, absolute revelation. He was in the front group all day, whittled right down to the last 7. He's missed this move, but I'm not surprised. He's very young indeed, is Martin Maskant, and he's done a fabulous ride. Only 25 years of age, his first real chance at going for something like this. A good, fairly good year last year, but this man at the head of affairs at the moment, Fabian Cancellara. He won the Eroica early in the season, on the Strada Bianchi. It shows what a strong rider he is and how he can deal with rough conditions. Well, we knew that anyway. He'd won this race 2 years ago. His teammate Stuart O'Grady did a tremendous amount of work, and they're a long way back now. 2:17. One of these 3 men is going to win Paris Roubaix with just a little over 10 kilometers to go. Alessandro Ballan would dearly love to add this to his palmarès to become one of the greatest classics riders of his generation. But Fabian Cancellara has already tested the legs a couple of times. Bonen is looking as though for the first time he's under a little bit of pressure from Cancellara, but he's the best sprinter of these 3. Cancellara can turn in a good sprint, but he's going to have to go really hard either just before or in the velodrome. Ballan, I think, unfortunately, unless something spectacular happens to everybody else, he is going to be outclassed in this, and he knows it. Look, he's looking over his shoulder already, wondering where everybody is. The CSC and Quick-Step worked very hard from about 100 kilometers out. Kevin Holtzmans and Steve de Jong doing a lot of the work for Tom Bonen, and then Stan de Volder launching an absolutely stinging attack on the final 8, of which Bonen and he had got in, and it was down to Stuart O'Grady to track it down. He went across the gap like a rocket, Stuart O'Grady, just ate up the distance, and de Volder knew the game was up. They're both back in the pursuing group now, but of course it meant that both Quick-Step and CSC had a bit of an easier ride, and it was down to Silence Lotto to shut that gap down, and it was Johan van Summeren who tried to close the gap, because that was a very, very dangerous partnership to let get away, De Volder and O'Grady. De Volder just coming off the back of a fabulous win in the Tour of Flanders, and Stuart O'Grady in really good form and a winner here last year. So this man here had a bit of an easy ride at the expense of Leif Hoster and Van Summeren, and they will be smarting again tonight, will Silence Lotto, because once again they're going to be losing out to Quick Step. Patrick Lefebvre has already seen victory 7 days ago in the Tour of Flanders with Stan De Volder. De Volder was so strong earlier, but he seems to have settled into that group back there. You never know what the game plan was going to be. One win to one rider. Maybe we'll put Tom up the road today. The Belgian press, I don't really care who wins this race as long as it's Tom Bonen. It's as simple as that. There's Fabian Cancellara, but on a Spartacus. Balan has been very canny. He spent a lot of time sitting on the back. I'm not sure he'd have been immensely popular for that, but you can't blame him. Had nobody with him, and he's going to have to really pull something out of the bag here. Doing a lot of work on the front, and I think he knows that possibly he's going to be down to third spot if he's not careful. Just look at that, just churning this over. It's interesting. I had a good old look at one of the winning bikes, one of Johan Museeu's winning bikes, actually, a 96 bike, not long ago, and it's interesting the way that the bike is set up for racing. Museu always using 41.52 on the front. It gives you a good idea of what they've got on these bikes. Not many riders nowadays using anything special. Maybe some double handlebar tape, but usually, as you can see, something like a 46.52 on the front. It's just flat out as far as you can, because there's no way of riding these cobbles slowly. You just have to hit it as hard as you can and keep going. If you slow down, come to a grinding halt, they're even worse to ride. Spinning a big gear, if you can possibly do it, is the best way forward, and just keeping going, and that's what wears people down. If anybody launches a stinging attack and you can't get back to them, there's no way that you are ever going to win something like Paris Roubaix. It's Balan driving on now, and Bonen's getting a little bit of an easier ride here. I wonder what's going through Alessandro Balan's mind, because these two are much better when it comes to the speed than Balan. He's not bad, but he's not going to be a match for Tom Bonen. Look at Bonen's bike as well. If you look at the front of his bike, he's had special bikes built for him, by the way, because he has a bit of a back problem, and Specialized have gone out of their way to create unique autoclave molds for these particular bikes. If you look at the front forks, they've got a little elastomer, a little sort of like a polymer sponge in the middle of them, just to take in the shocks. There it is, if you can see it, the little lump on the front forks, just to try and take some shock out. A lot of riders riding with cantilever brakes, cyclocross bikes. Roger Hammond, one of them. There's a lot of riders at the back of the group riding with that sort of bike. Well, still Balan is pushing on with 6.5 kilometers to go, and the last big section of cobbles has gone under their wheels now. It's a case of who is going to get to the Roubaix Velodrome for the last kilometers, a lap and a half in the best shape possible. Which one of these riders, if any, is going to launch an attack? Balan has done well to stay in here. He'll get on the podium. That's of no doubt at all. But will he be able to take the fight to these two? I doubt it very much. He's doing a lot of pushing on the front. I think he knows it's his best option is to just keep driving it on. 6 kilometers or thereabouts still to go. Bonen happy to take the ride. And Balan digging in again. Cancellara lurking at the back. Watch out, one of these two is going to launch an attack in a minute. There's 3 minutes back to the pursuers. No danger at all from them, and they're beginning to look at each other, these two. 6 kilometers to go, still working together, and which one is going to go off the front first? Now, what's happened to Cancellara there? Anything? Got his hand in the air. What does he want? Well, his car is up here now. A little bit of a tactic here. What can we do? You never know what the game plan is. Oh, Cancellara goes to the front smoothly, just pulling on Bonin straight into the wheel. Into the wheel of Bonin goes Alessandro Balan. Cancellara probably, I wonder if he's saying I haven't got the legs to out-sprint Tom Bonin today. Well, first in 2006 in spectacular style, riding away in the last few kilometers. He's going to have a different ball game altogether today, because we've got 3 different teams with one very good sprinter, one of the top sprinters in the world, one awesome time trialist, the world time trial champion, double world time trial champion, Fabian Cancellara, and a former winner of the Tour of Flanders and a very tactically astute rider, Alessandro Balan, in here as well. I think he's outclassed. I've said it before, but I think he is in terms of finish today. Running into the outskirts of Roubaix now. Remember, once they get over that 300-meter section of cobblestone, which is almost a formality, they enter the Roubaix velodrome. Will somebody try and attack through the tunnel into the velodrome? Who knows? It could well be the case. That would be a very, very smart thing to do. If you could suddenly put the hammer down from behind. Let's see who's going to get to that point. Just try and catch them napping. Whoop. Quickly inside there. We've had a couple of people colliding with bits of traffic island, but mercifully not too many. There have been a number of crashes earlier in the day. The biggest profile losers, Juan Antonio Fletcher, who was looking so good last week, and he missed out today thanks to a crash, as did Pipo Pozzato. The both of them spent 30 kilometers chasing back onto the front group, at which time it went again. They just had nothing left in the tank. Leif Hoster hitting the deck with some 45 kilometers to go and having to chase back on again. Not as long, but it took it out of him. Here is the Roubaix velodrome. 1.5 laps. We've seen so many glorious finishes here. 4 kilometers to go. Which one is going to go first? This is the point, surely, when somebody will have to make an attack, unless they're going to come down for the sprint today. Has Fabian Cancellara decided that he hasn't got it in the legs to go on a break and try and take it from Tom Bonin at this point? Bonin is looking the best to me at the moment. It's amazing, isn't it? Absolutely incredible. After 260 kilometers, they're still turning those pedals so smoothly. Well, Cancellara is sitting behind Bonin. Is he still going to come and do some work at the front? He is. The 3 of them still working together with 3.5 kilometers to go. Somebody's going to have to make a jump soon. Well, Balan knows he can't do that. I mean, he might try it, but he's not going to get anywhere. It could be a last do-or-die effort from him, because the other two are going to track him down. Now, unless he jumps them just going into the velodrome itself, maybe across the last section of Pave, maybe through the tunnel, that would be interesting. But Bonin is more worried about Fabian Cancellara. There he is. None of these guys, you may notice, for those of you who like splashing up on very big, expensive carbon wheels, have carbon wheels on. Just too rough. You need the braking, you need the cushioning, you need the strength. And carbon just throwing you around all over the place. Some riders, I have to say, are riding carbon. Hincapie had carbon front, and when he got a puncture, got an aluminium rear. No deep section carbon anyway. There might be some carbon in those wheels, who knows, but certainly not deep section. Balan. Cancellara just stretching. He knows he's got a fight in his hand now, because Tom Bonin, one of the world's greatest sprinters, is in this group with him, and unless he can do something serious now, Balan now looking over his shoulder, you know, are they still going to come through, or are they going to attack him? This is the big question Balan is going to have to be asking himself. What can he do now? And that sat-nav, that GPS on his handlebar, absolutely no use to him at all now. He knows where he's got to go. It goes round and round in circles. It's called the Roubaix Velodrome, and he's got 1.5 laps to try and do something in. I don't fancy his chances up against these two. It's been a cracking race so far. Behind, some 3.5 minutes back now, and still plugging away. Stuart O'Grady, Stan de Volder, Martin Maskant also in there, 2 to go. And there's been some great riders behind. Leif Hoster just suddenly sat up when the gap got out to about 1 minute and 10. He just didn't have anything left at all. Another bridesmaid day for Leif Hoster. And this year's #1, not in this group, but his teammate is. Stuart O'Grady had a fantastic attack earlier. Well, he bridged a gap, should I say, to a stinging attack from Stan de Volder and neutralized it. But those have been the 2 big teams of the day, while others have fallen to the wayside, some by luck, some by lack of judgment. Team High Road and Silence Lotto falling backwards, and it's been Quick Step and CSC who've managed to do the damage to everybody else. Had 2 super strong riders at the end, both of them. Here we go. Over the last section of cobblestones. This is really a formality. They're going to enter the velodrome very, very soon now. 1.5 kilometers to go. Just 300 meters of this. It really isn't very rough at all. There's the kite, the Flamme Rouge, into the last kilometer of road. And in we go through the entrance to the Roubaix Stadium, coming up very, very shortly. Boland's got the other 2 behind him. He's going to have to do something now, because he's going to have a real problem keeping these 2 off. And Bonen's in the best position at the moment. Surely Boland doesn't want to take them into the Roubaix Velodrome like that, does he? There they go, through the entrance. Well, I thought he might have tried to jump them there, but he's not going to. He's just going to hang about and see if he can do something here. We've got Fabian Cancellara, 1.5 laps, remember. Cancellara will have to go at some point soon, because again, a flat-out sprint against Tom Bonen, it's going to be very difficult. They're going to take the bell this time. Boland has led them in. Is he going to put his head down and really, really go for it, or is he going to try a sucker punch? Cancellara just sitting there. Bonen knows he's in the pound seats at the moment. Tom Bonen, who's won this event back in 2004, along with the Tour of Flanders. Cancellara, who won 2 years ago, and Alessandro Boland, a Flanders winner but never a winner here. He's going to wind it up a long way out, because he knows he can't outsprint these 2. Still in the saddle is Cancellara, but Bonen's winding it up. Here he comes. He's going to go up the banking around the outside. Is Cancellara going to go for it? Here he goes through the middle. Bonen goes around the outside. It's going to be easy victory for Tom Bonen. The Flandrian rider's going to take it. The other 2 are going to fight it out for second. Tom Bonen wins Paris-Roubaix. And it's neck and neck. I think Cancellara just about took second away from Alessandro Boland. But in the end, it was all a bit easy for the last 50 meters or so. Please don't take that to mean the whole thing was a bit easy. Not at all. But Tom Bonen, when he came into that velodrome knowing he was the best sprinter by far, in absolutely the right place, went around the outside, look, and to be fair, the other 2 really knew they were beaten, and they didn't have the ability to respond. They were chasing it, chasing. I think they were more battling each other than they were Tom Bonen. Super victory. He's looked good all day. Tom Bonen wins Paris-Roubaix 2008, and that will have set his career up for this year, because the home press in Belgium don't particularly worry about anything else as if he wins a classic. He missed out on the Tour of Flanders to his teammate Stan de Volder, who was an excellent first, but he wanted to pull something out of the bag to make his 2008 career good. Yep. And that's it. Here comes the next group on the road. Stan de Volder, there he is at the front in the Belgian national champions jersey, and then Stuart O'Grady. Has Martin Maskant gone off up the road to try and take 4th place? The young man from Slipstream. Well, he looks like he has. That's a remarkable ride by Martin Maskant. at his first attempt, it looks like he's going to do Tom Bonin and come home in 4th by the look of it. So Bonin wins on the velodrome. A smooth, it's irony, isn't it? They have to go around this smooth velodrome after pounding over 258 kilometers of cobbles and rough road. Here is Martin Mascan, picked up by Jonathan Vaughters last year, having ridden with Rabobank for a number of years. Just look back at this. Look, Bonin winds it up for this point, and look, really the other two didn't have any response for that. They knew they were beaten. And let's see who gets this. Balin looking over his shoulder. It would be nice if we could go back and see the other two. Maybe they'll come into shot. Boonen taking a victory in Paris Roubaix, a super sprint that he has, and we still didn't see who came over the line second. Here is Martin Mascan, 2:38 down, a tremendous ride, and Jonathan Vaughters will be absolutely ecstatic at this. The Slipstream Chipotle team really showing that they're not just also-rans, and they deserve their invite by the ASO to the Tour de France this year. This race, of course, run by the ASO, the same as the Tour of France, and they're repaying that favour in spades, aren't they? Terrific ride by this young man, former Rabobank rider, now riding for the American team. Down on the Côte d'Azur there. Super ride, and tremendous advertising for Slipstream and Chipotle, and also Felt Bikes, of course, because here they are competing at the very highest level, being utterly reliable, and the young rider from Holland, Martin Mascan, taking 4th place. Looks like Hosta is going to take it. Well, are they being chased down from behind? O'Grady 5th, Hosta 6th by the look of it. De Volder coming in 7th. Supreme irony, isn't it, that they end up on this outside velodrome after all that racing across rough cobbles. Well, if only you could have something in the UK like that and end up at Herne Hill, that would be fantastic, wouldn't it? Bonin from Cancellara it was who took it, and Alessandro Balin 3rd today. This is Johan van Summeren. Well, what a race he had. He works absolutely tirelessly. He's so dedicated as a domestique and works so hard, and did so again for Leif Hosta. And the riders coming in behind, it looks like finally we are seeing George Hincapie here. Andreas Clear, is it, who's leading him home? Bernard Eisel. And they still, it's amazing, isn't it? They still sprint for all the places, even when they're well off the podium, because it looks good in your Palmares. If you've got 8th instead of 28th, you may all come in at the same time, and that's why they do it. It's amazing how many riders say, well, why do they do that to me? And you think, well, can't you work that out? Riders and amateur riders going, I don't know why they sprint for that. Well, it just looks better, doesn't it? Any director sportif will see 8th instead of 28th. So a victory for Tom Bonin from Fabien Cancellara and Alessandro Balin. Martin Mascan, fabulous 4th for him. This time the top 10 in Paris Roubaix, 106th running. Bonin taking a sprint victory ahead of Cancellara and Balin. Martin Mascan at 3:30. O'Grady and Leif Hosta. A beautiful day for the running of Roubaix. In the end, it looked like it was going to threaten rain, but it stayed dry, and we had a cracking race. Real heavy pace being put on by Quick-Step, High Road, and also from CSC, but in the end it really was a problem for others. Well, it was Tom Bonin's sprinting prowess who took the victory in the end. CSC and Quick-Step working very, very hard on the front. De Volder and Stuart O'Grady doing most of the damage. And in the end, it turned out to be rather straightforward
met een historische overwinning. Even goed doen als
for Tom Bonen.
Steenbergen, even goed doen als
because he arrived in the stadium with Alessandro Ballan, who for all the world didn't have a hope in hell of overtaking Tom Bonen. Alessandro Ballan and Fabian Cancellara just had to keep working to get themselves to the Roubaix stadium. People still coming in now, 6.5 minutes down. And still touring in, but Cancellara just before the end, coming up to his car and saying, I can't do this. Was it so easy to beat these two in the sprint, is the question. It's not so easy, says Tom. It's always difficult. On a velodrome in Roubaix. When you come into the final like this, it's always very, very tactical. And when I decided to attack on the right up the banking, I knew I had an advantage.
Après votre dernier Paris Roubaix en 2005, j'ai
certainly did have an advantage. She's the better sprinter.
Et maintenant,
championnat du monde. I think the question was after your last Paris Roubaix 2005.
Je suis déjà très motivé pour le championnat. Je vais déjà connais le circuit là-bas.
I'm pretty motivated for the World Championships again this year, says Bonen.
Pas pour le coureur pour la montagne, mais pour le coureur fort. Et normalement, je suis un coureur pour un parcours comme ça.
This year, it's not a course for climbers, so it might suit me. I think it'll be pretty good for me. But now I've got to think about doing a good Tour de France, and then maybe I'll do the Vuelta, and then after that we'll think about the World Championships. Well, yeah, double winner in 2005, remember, Tour of Flanders and Paris Roubaix. Also won Harelbeke that year as well. Last year, not quite so good. Won Brussels-Kern last year. This year, already taken victory overall in the Tour of Qatar. Didn't do so well in the Tour of Flanders because his teammate Stan de Volder rode an absolutely fabulous race, and he played the perfect teammate, which is a great thing about a superstar. He's able to do that as well. And has finally come good for Paris Roubaix, and the Belgian press, Het Nieuwsblad and Het Volk and all these papers will be absolutely stuffed with Tom Bonen's victory tomorrow. It'll be on the front pages. And here in the Roubaix Velodrome, Tom Bonen has fulfilled the promise he gave to everybody and said, I will win Paris Roubaix. Wilfred Peters on the left-hand side was the guy in the lead car. There's Patrick Lefevre in the red tie, the boss of Quick-Step. Dirk Nachtegaal is the little chap with the goatee beard. He's the head soigneur for Quick-Step, and they are exceptionally happy. Well, it was a super race. We had a breakaway of 3, first of all, staying away for quite a long time, but they didn't get away until 90 kilometers because of the exceptionally hard tailwind and not wanting to let anybody get away. There was Matti Pronk of Koolstrop, Jan Kux of Landbouw Credit, and Alex Serov of Tinkoff. They were caught with about 90 kilometers still remaining, a little less than that. Some big names crashing out and having to chase back on and just exhausting themselves in the process. Pipo Pazzato went down along with Arnold Koyo and Fletcher in the same crash with about 60 to go. They chased and chased and chased. Sorry, a little more than that, about 90 to go, and they chased until about 60 and got back on. Leif Hoster too, falling, not quite so badly, but again having to chase back on, and once again bad luck dogging Leif Hoster. Eventually, the group was whittled down from about 25 to about 8, driven on by Stan de Volder and by Stuart O'Grady. Van Sommeren had to chase for Lotto, just wore himself out doing so, and in the end, his team leader Leif Hoster was left with nobody, whereas this man was left with de Volder, and Cancellara is left with his teammate. But the winner, Tom Bonen, gets to lift another of those huge stone pave trophies. You see them lifted over their heads like that, and they lift it up on a pure wave of emotion. I've tried picking one of those things up. They're really heavy. Spectacular sight. It's been a lovely race today. And drying out nicely. Only a couple of sections with a little surface mud on them, and as always, a few people going down on that. But by and large, a dry race, and the riders were pleased about that. It meant for a very fast race as well with the tailwind. Notable performances by Marcus Lundqvist of CSC, did a huge amount of work. Bernard Eisel and dragging George Hincapie back up. Hincapie himself was in contention for a long time, had a mechanical, had to get a spare wheel, and then in fact dropped backwards rather than forwards to mingle in amongst the cars and try and get a bit of a tow back up. Didn't work out for him, and High Road real losers in today's race. They had about 5 men in the 25-man break, 4 men in fact, and that was looking very good. His watch back on Tom Bonen out sprinting Cancellara and Alessandro Ballan here to take victory. Well, Cancellara knew he was beat by the time they got to the Roubaix Velodrome. Just before the last kilometre or so, the car came up, and he just looked at him and said, there's no way it's going to happen for me today, because I can't outsprint this man. I think that was the long and short of it. Looks like Miss Roubaix Metropole on the left-hand side there, helping with the flower ceremony. I'm surprised we haven't seen Cyril Guimard up here as well, the former director sportive of Système U Fignon and so on, because he runs the Roubaix Metropole Cycling Club. Now, very good club it is too, up here. Alessandro Ballan taking 3rd spot, gets his medal. You can see Bernardino at the back, working for ASO. He actually detested this race, did Bernardino. He did come here and he won it, and then he went away saying, I'm never going to ride it again. I've got a feeling he did, but he never wanted to ride it in the first place, and he came here to confound people and won. Victory for Tom Bonen. Cancellara gets silver, bronze, and 3rd to Alessandro Ballan. Wonderful race again today, but the Belgians will be happy tonight. Tom Bonen, winner. Well, it's been a wonderful race. I've been very pleased and very privileged to be able to do it. It's the first one I've done, Paris Roubaix, and a cracking race for all that. Hope you brought you up to date with everything that came before our coverage. At the end, it was a very short 20 kilometres, wasn't it? That's due to the tailwind. From me, David Hammond, I'll see you next weekend for Amstel Gold. Bye for now.